On today's episode, I welcome somebody that probably had one of the biggest and best first impressions on me of anybody I've ever met. He is a very accomplished person, an author, a speaker, you name it, he does it. Mr. Accountability, Dave Anderson, how are you doing today?
Jay, I'm doing great. Thanks for the time today.
I am absolutely thrilled to get you on. One, it was when we reached out to ask for you to come on the podcast. Wasn't sure if you would do it or not. In being that we're kind of a niche podcast, it's not reaching the probably gigantic audiences you're used to reaching. But I really had dove into your work. It started with reading the book Unstoppable that you had written, one of my favorite books I think I've ever read in my life, and one that I reference as much as I possibly can because there are little tidbits in it that are just things that help in daily life. And so uh, to get you on this podcast is just very humbling and pretty cool that you'd take the time to do.
I'm just listen, I'm happy to talk to anybody that wants to listen to what I have to say. So I appreciate the invite. I love to share regardless of the numbers. I've spoken to full rooms with four people in it before, and I was just happy to have the four. So I'm good with anything.
I I mentioned at the top about the first impression piece, and as we met and started talking, you had asked if I was a Wisconsin Badger fan, and I said, "Yeah, a huge Badger fan." My 8-year-old son Bo is a big Badger fan, and you had said, "Well, I happen to work with the Badgers quite a bit," and so what came after that was just incredible. You started sending us videos of former players, current players, of just messages to my son, and all of them were very well spoken. It didn't seem like it was an inconvenience to them. They were just really, really good people. But the fact that you went out of your way to do that for somebody you had just met just absolutely blew me away.
It was fun to do, and the guys were thrilled to do it. The Badgers don't just recruit good ball players; they recruit good guys, just really good young men. But I work with some NBA players as a mental skills trainer, and a lot of them, they didn't have a dad that was involved in their life. They didn't even know to this day who that person is. And so when you find somebody that is involved in their son's life, like I could tell that you were, you want to rally around that. So it was fun to do, and I'm glad Bo got some good times out of it and some good stories too, didn't he?
He really really did something that I mentioned before we hit record that he's going around and bragging to his buddies about these really really good basketball players sending him messages. So very much appreciated. But I do want to ask, where did you get that? The ability to just deliver over the top. And I sense it in every book that I've read of yours, every piece of content that I've consumed, that you just have this ability to kind of take it to the next level, kind of in all areas of your life. But what drives that?
I think it's a mindset, and I talk about it a little bit, Jay, in the latest book, is to give all you have to what you've got, to always do your best. And I know that sounds cliche, but with whatever you do, look for a way to maximize it. I don't care if it's making your bed. First of all, make it, and then do it really well, because then you set a standard for yourself to where no matter what you're doing, you give your all, you give your best. If you do less than your best, sometimes it's like if I had in the back of my mind, I could do this, but I'm busy and they're busy, so I don't do it. Then you develop two standards for yourself, your best and less than your best, and you don't know which one's going to wiggle its way out when you most need your best to show up. And always doing your best doesn't mean you're great at everything. It means you give all you have to what you got. So I think when you do that over a period of time, it becomes natural. It just becomes your standard. That's the standard that you have for yourself. And I didn't think anything of it. To me, it was no big deal because that's just here's what I can do, so here's what I'm going to do. And it's funny that you mentioned that because it's just kind of become part of my thinking, part of my DNA, if you will. And I think anybody can develop that. I think most people don't because they live part of their lives sloppy and cutting corners, and then they justify it. It didn't matter that much. I really didn't have that much time. It's not that big of a deal. But they don't understand. They're training their conscience that it's okay to give less than you have, that it's okay to do less than your best. And you only have one conscience, and you have to be careful how you're training it. So now we're training it to have two different standards. And I'm telling you, that wrong standard wiggles out a lot when you don't want it to. Like when the stakes are really high, that bad one's going to come out. So I think that's why it was an easy thing to do, and I'm glad it made such a great impression. To me, it was no big deal.
Well, was this something, were you raised that way with kind of the little detail stuff that was important?
Yeah, I did, but I didn't get it for a while. My dad was that way, and I thought he was just neurotic and he was anal and he was all these things and these things we call people that actually have standards in their lives, right? And so that oh, you're just picky, you're just making much to do about nothing. But it started to kick in long after I got into management, and I ran a group of dealerships and started as a salesperson and ended up running 6 stores in Palo Alto. And it really started to kick in when I had 5 general managers that were reporting to me, plus I was general manager of a store, of the 6th store. And it's like there's no margin for error here. You have to, all these little loose ends, all this little sloppiness, this untidiness, this less than your best here. Now the stakes are higher. And so we've got to get this standard. So I finally caught on little by little. And that was about 30 years ago. It really took. I'm 64 now, so I was a slow learner, but better late than never. Some guys are on their deathbed at 85. They still haven't figured this out. Then it's a little late, isn't it?
It is. And I think we all see that from the best performers, right? We see the ones that are attention to detail folks, and you see that in the best businesses. You see that you mentioned working with athletes. The little things add up to a lot. And granted, there is, I think, natural ability in whatever profession you're in that it will put you in a better position. But I think so much of it does come down to the fine detail. This is something I've had to work on in myself over the years. I am not. Um, I, I say I'm not overly attention to detail. I think it depends on the thing, right? And where in reading what you write and what you talk about, it's about everything. And you have the saying EdMed, every day means every day. And I it is one of those things that I'm constantly trying to remind myself of and trying to get better with, because it is one of those pieces where that consistency drives gigantic results. But it is easy to get lazy in your mind and kind of set the standard lower, and it hurts people when they do that.
It does. I'll tell you, what really kicked it into gear for me, I think everybody ought to take some kind of martial arts, and it doesn't matter what your age is. And it's not just so you can beat people up. The whole idea is that you shouldn't have to, but yeah, you should be able to defend yourself. But I had a sensei that I started working with, and still to this day I do, in my 40s. I got started late. And he was really strict. This guy is in 3 karate halls of fame. He is a 7-time champion, and he's a ninth degree black belt. And he lived 2 doors down from me. It was crazy, and I knew who he was for years before I ever opened the door. And the higher you went, the less margin there was for error. So he started you very early. Get it all right. Don't round off any corners, right? Because by the time you take your black belt test, you can't make a single mistake. And it goes on for hours. And it's a Korean form of martial arts, and you have to learn how to do these katas, where you do these 40 movement things. and you have to do 12 of them, but you have to start by naming the form in Korean. And you can't even mispronounce it or you flunk the test. Only he makes you take the whole test. And then he tells you after, by the way, about 2.5 hours ago, you made this mistake. And so, we can schedule another time in 6 months to try it again. So he really, and he turns the air conditioning off and you've got your gi on. And I mean, you're just sweating. And then the last thing you do to pass the test is you have to fight him after he's been just, rested for hours. But it conditioned me to where it all matters. Everything matters. This move matters. That angle matters. And the whole idea of pronouncing the form correctly is you should learn how to think before you speak, which a lot of managers, that principle would help them get a lot, further down the road than they are. And so he was a huge influence that came along later in my life. You never know when your mentors are going to show up. And I've been blessed to have three really impactful mentors in my life, and he was one of them. And he's the one, Jay, that really started to teach me about mindset. And I've written 16 books, but the last three have been all on mindset, unstoppable, intentional mindset, and elevate your excellence, because I finally figured out you can have all the skills, how to recruit and interview and train and hold people accountable. But if your thinking isn't right, you're not going to do that stuff anyway. I
Oh,
mean, we all know experienced people who don't do much with it. We know talented people who are lazy. You know people that have all this knowledge that are very negative and always looking for the downside of things. And that all goes back to how you think. But the problem is most people don't work on their thinking. They work on their job. They'll even work on their skills, but they're not working to improve how they think. And how you
mm,
think determines what you do and how well you do it and who you become in the process. And so I wish I'd have learned that later. I wish, when I was a teenager, I'd have gotten into it. But I'd have started taking martial arts. However, I might not have been ready for it. I might not have had the right mindset at that time to be humble enough and hungry enough to really embrace what he was saying. And I'm grateful that he was hard on me. And I think sometimes we get upset because our boss expects a lot. But listen, if that boss under challenges you, he cheats you. And if you under challenge your people, you cheat your people. I mean, some people don't see the greatness within them because they're too close to it and they need somebody to call that out. And so we shouldn't buckle or resist or get resentful when somebody makes us uncomfortable with a high set of expectations, because what we're going to have to struggle to do to get there is going to help us grow.
Want to build a pipeline of young technician talent in your shop? Check out School Assist. Powered by WrenchWay and ASE, School Assist makes it easy for shops and dealerships who are looking for young technician talent to build relationships with instructors and their students. Schools post specific requests for things like equipment, tools, advisory committee members, shop visits, and more. Shops can view these requests and directly connect with program instructors all in one place. Over 2,800 schools and 2,000 shops are already using School Assist to build valuable connections. See if it's right for your shop. Learn more at wrenchway.com/school-assist. Link is in the show notes. I want to talk about the accountability side. In I think this is something that in our industry a lot of folks struggle with, myself included, in trying to have those difficult conversations that try and is even setting the bar, having that conversation up front with folks and laying out kind of that groundwork for setting that expectation. You work with some pretty high profile folks, and in your book Unstoppable you talk about your work with Damian Lillard. And I'm just curious as to, you've worked with a lot of high performers in your life. Is it easier or harder to hold that high performer accountable? And let's start there. Is it easier or harder to hold that high performer accountable?
It's easier if you get them earlier and you can condition them for what to expect from you. If you've got a guy that hasn't been held accountable, and a lot of these athletes, they've been spoiled, pampered, and had everything handed to them. They've been given every accommodation for so long that all of a sudden, if I catch them too late, I try to get them right out of college. And sometimes even then, now that they're paying them a lot in college, it can be too late. Okay.
Yeah.
But if you can condition them, because if I catch them too late and now it's like, wait a minute, look how well I've done without you. Look how well I've done up to this point without this type of scrutiny and this type of accountability. They're less open to it, most of them, unless they're stuck. If people are stuck and they're struggling, they're a lot more open. The drowning man is open to suggestions how not to die. Okay. The guy at the top of the mountain enjoying the view, drinking beer, talking about how great he's done, he's a little less coachable at that point. All right. So yeah, I've worked, but I met Damien 8 years ago, and he was already successful. He was doing really well, but he had the mindset that most people don't have. I want to stay hungry. I want to stay humble. How do I keep that going? Not okay, look how well I've done, how well I figured it out. And so, but regardless, let's say you inherit, okay, you take over a new department and you have a top performer there that's never been held accountable. Well, I will just tell you, it's never too late to do the right thing. But you got to get really clear first about what you expect. I mean, you've got to set out ground rules, Jay, because accountability is impossible without clarity. Because the question is accountable for what? How the heck can I sit down and say, Jay, you're not living our values. You're getting great numbers, man, but you're not doing it the right way. You're not living the values. If I never talk about the values, or I see a lot of managers, they don't know what they are. They're hanging on a wall, core values. All they are is decor in some nice fancy frame the dealer put up there, and no, they walk past and nobody knows what the heck they are. And so without that type of clarity, and clarity has two aspects, Jay, really, you got to make it clear and then keep it clear. And keeping it clear is a lot of work because it fades. Clarity
Yeah.
fizzles. We say, well, I've told them once. Well, you better tell them 128 more times. And about the time you're so sick of saying it, you could puke. They're starting to get it, quite frankly. Okay. It's like, yeah, you can't possibly over communicate clarity. You're a lot more likely to under communicate it. So yeah, you can get that top performer, and it's maybe going to be a little bit more challenging and say, look, I'm going to hold you accountable for two different metrics, the numbers, which you're doing really well with, and then the values, which are getting the numbers the right way. And by the way, part of the values is following our processes, is being here on time. It's doing, processes. People don't like to follow processes. As long as I get the numbers, why should it matter? Well, a process isn't punishment, it's protection. It protects you from bad habits. It protects you from shortcuts and training your brain the wrong way. It protects you from self-destruction and having that conversation with them. And you may have some top performers don't like that conversation. And I know managers, they're afraid to have this conversation with them because, well, what if he leaves? Well, okay. It's like the trash taking itself out, quite frankly. If you have somebody that doesn't want to live your values, you have no idea how many good people that person's holding down. You're worried about what it's going to cost if he leaves. You should be awake at night thinking about what it's costing you for that person to stay and continue to create cultural misery on the installment plan for everyone that has to be around them. So accountability isn't always easy. It's always worth it. But you got to do it the right way, though. You can't be a jerk. We got to learn how to talk to people. And in this business, that's not always the way it's done because the words won't
Yeah.
land if you don't say it the right way.
Oh, it's such good advice there. And I know there are a number of shop leaders listening to this right now. And we talk a lot about this in our world with relation to technicians. And because there's such a shortage of skilled labor to actually work on the car or piece of equipment or truck, whatever it might be, a lot of these shops find themselves handcuffed because they feel like they can't say anything to the individual. They can't enforce those cultural things that they're trying to enforce because they are terrified of this person leaving. And it it results in bad cultures. It results in bad work environments and other people being miserable coming to work. And I think this is just such a timely piece of advice for our industry as a whole, is that if you continue to allow that behavior in your shop, you're going to continue to get the same results and continue to have that frustration that you can't steer the ship in the right direction. And I love your approach and insight there.
Well, I appreciate that. It's common sense, which is why most people don't want to do it. They overthink it. But what this person has to understand is, I'm not singling you out. These are values for all of us. These are things we all do. You are part of a team. And when you're part of a team, here's what you got to know. It's not about you. It was never about you. It'll never be about you. You got to be okay with that. It's about what's best for the team. I'm held accountable to these things. I tell them, I'm held accountable to the same thing. So you're not being singled out. You're just being asked to do, to live the values, to follow the process, is everyone else is being asked to do. And what really hurts, Jay, is when a loser loses his or her credibility. When we say, yep, these are non-negotiables, these are the processes, these are the values, and then people don't do them and nothing happens. Now the leader's not a leader. Now the leader is a pretender with a title. He's an empty suit. He's a clown. And I think a lot of leaders today are so hungry to be liked that they make a lot of compromises and they're no longer respected. Nothing wrong with being liked. I mean, but like should follow respect. People tend to like people that they respect. I may not always agree with you, but I respect the fact that I know where you stand and I know where I stand. And that's something to respect. I mean, you got these leaders that they're trying to make everybody happy. It's like, brother, if you want to make everybody happy in your next life, maybe you could come back as tequila or ice cream or a clown. I don't know. Clowns have gotten kind of creepy in some of these movies now, but maybe a clown's not a good example. But it's like, no, you gotta do what's right. And when you do what's right, it's going to make some people unhappy. It's going to make them uncomfortable, but that's how people grow. My job, listen, my job is not to make you comfortable. My job is to help you grow. And to help you grow, you're going to have to be uncomfortable. And there's going to be expectations that challenge you, some feedback that maybe you don't want to hear, but that you need to hear. I'll always be respectful. I can say a really tough message in the right way. I've learned how to do that. I used to not do it that way. I used to be horrible at it. I thought I just had to get loud to get my point across. No, I needed to get skilled. You don't need to get loud. You don't need to get emotional. All that does is distract from the words you're trying to get to land. And so, but what we got to understand with accountability is what you tolerate will continue. So don't look surprised. If people are coming in late every day and you tolerate it, they're going to keep coming in late. I mean, if you want to change a behavior, you got to change the consequence for that behavior. You at least need to learn how to have a good, skillful conversation with that person. We don't even want to talk to people today. And I think we've lost some of our ability to communicate and to give feedback because of all the emails and all the texts, and we just don't have the people skills in some regard to relate to people. And so, but you don't get better at relating to people by not relating to people. You don't get better at holding people accountable by avoiding holding people accountable. Like anything else, you got to put in the reps. But this protects your culture. This protects your brand. It protects your credibility. It protects your production. It protects morale. It protects momentum. It protects the customer experience. The stakes are too high. And if a leader isn't going to develop the skill set and the mindset to get really great at holding people accountable, they should get out of leadership and go find something easier for them to do. Because it's in leadership, it's not an option, it's a duty.
The need to be liked, as you're talking through this, I think can be a huge detriment, right? Because I do think in a lot of cases that could lead to that lack of clarity, right? Because maybe that person doesn't want to clearly state the expectations, and in doing so really causes this confusion amongst their teams. And it really, I see it all the time, right? That lack of communication, and we say communication, but really the clarity of the message coming across, it confuses people and they don't know what they're aiming for, right? Because they're not sure where they're supposed to be going.
You're exactly right. And I think you hit on an important point, Jay. I think a lot of leaders don't even realize they're doing this. It's subconscious. They prefer things be a little vague. They don't want to draw the line too deeply in the sand because they know if they do and that line gets crossed, they're actually going to have to do something about it. So if I leave it a little gray, If I act like I assume they know what they're supposed to do and then it doesn't get done, I can pretend that it's not happening. I don't have to make myself or them uncomfortable by addressing it. And I don't even think people recognize what they're doing, but we got to understand how the brain is wired. Your brain will always try to protect you from uncomfortable situations. You see, the brain does not care about keeping us happy. The brain cares about keeping us alive. That's what the brain's job is for. Could not care less if we're happy. Cares a lot if you survive. So it's always causing us to avoid change, to avoid discomfort, to avoid confrontation. It's natural. So to lead well, you got to think unnaturally. You have to rewire the brain not to do what's easy and comfortable, instead to do what's right. And that takes intention. Intention means on purpose. You have to really work at it. You have to be purposeful to do it that way.
The confrontation part is one that I struggle with again myself, where uh, I don't necessarily love being confrontational, right? And I think there are times where that has held me back from having a true, honest conversation. For those folks like me out there that are listening, what is a good exercise to get comfortable in that conflict and really kind of not look for it, but not be afraid of it?
I think we need to do a better job as leaders of leading with questions. I think we try to command commitment instead of getting people to commit, and it's a subtle change. So let's just say you were supposed to have X number of shown appointments yesterday. Okay, maybe that's one of your minimum requirements, and you missed. And we're having our little morning meeting. I'm a big believer in having a little huddle in the morning to hold people accountable for the essential actions the day before. So we're managing activities, not just being gazing at the scoreboard. You got to stay in the game. Don't confuse the scoreboard for the game. So I got to manage the game. And Jay, let's say you fell short. I might say, well, Jay, you missed by this. I need this from you today, man. I need this from you today. Well, obvious, you have no obligation to keep my word. On the other hand, if I say, Jay, you fell a little short of what you were supposed to have yesterday, what can I expect you to have by tomorrow this time? Well, Dave, I'm going to have this. All right, man. I appreciate your commitment to improve. I'm going to hold you to that. By getting you to say it, number one, I just reminded you that you made a commitment. Now, you have a lot bigger obligation to keep your word than to keep mine. And I'm also going to remind you, I'm going to hold you to it. So it's leading with questions. I don't think now don't ask a question like you're a prosecuting attorney reading off an indictment to somebody. I mean, a lot of it has to do with tone and inflection. But let's say you have a technician, you have an advisor, they just did less than their best with that customer. You know it. They mailed it in. Maybe they did less than their best that month. How you approach it is important. Can I share an example? I don't think Tyler Wall would mind me sharing this example. So a couple of years ago, when I was working with the Badgers, Tyler Wall was the leader of the team. He's the tough guy. He's the leader. He was our inspiration. And I'd known Tyler since he was a freshman. And so I'd worked with him for several years. Now there's a lesson there. The depth of your relationship determines the depth of your coaching. If you have a stronger relationship with somebody, you can push them more. You can say tougher stuff because they know it's coming from the right place. They know your motives are good. So you've got to build a trusting relationship with your people, or they'll always feel attacked when you're trying to tell them something that'll help them because they don't know that it's coming from the right place. They feel picked on, especially young people today. They feel attacked when you give them a tough message. So I could say things to Tyler I couldn't say with a freshman because I wasn't with the Badgers every day. I did texts and I did videos, and I might have been with them 4 or 5 times a year. So you had to maximize that time. Well, we had just been ranked number 6 in the country, which I knew it horrified me because we were not that good. I knew we were not that good. The problem is the team thought they were that good, and I tried to tell them they weren't that good, and they didn't want to believe me. And we were walking into Nebraska. We were going to play Nebraska, who was unranked. So this is what we call a trap game, Jay. You've got a great ranking. They're a quote nobody. There's a bullseye on your back. You're walking into a trap. They got everything to gain, nothing to lose. They're going to play loose. They're going to bring it all at you. And our guys probably weren't going to take the game very seriously, which they didn't. And I could tell. I could tell with the communications we had that week, they were not locked in. They were looking past him to Purdue, which was the next game, which is always a biggie. And I was not at that game, but I watched that game and I was so disgusted with Tyler's play, someone that I had higher expectations for, somebody that I expected to lead the team well. Bad body language, way too tense. I could tell he wasn't mentally prepared. Anyhow, they take us into overtime, which is not good when you're on their court, and they beat us. So I'm in the Madison, I'm in the film room 3 days later, right before we get ready to play Purdue. And I know Tyler did less than his best, but I didn't want to attack him in front of the whole group and say, Tyler, you did less than your best, and here's what you need to do against Purdue tomorrow. Bam, 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 bam. This is what most managers would do. They call people out, they don't call them up. So we got to learn how to call people out and then to call them up. If we just call them out, we leave them in failure. So I have a series of questions. The four key questions that I ask somebody, again, lead with questions, ask more questions that get them involved. My first question is this, Tyler, and I said this in front of the whole group. Now, it takes a high degree of skill. You really got to do it the right way to call somebody out in front of everybody else. I don't recommend it. You got to be really good at this and you have to have a good relationship with that person, but I knew Tyler would take it well. I said, Tyler, was the effort you brought against Nebraska, was that the best you're capable of doing? That was a question. Was the month you had last month, was that the best you're capable of doing? Was the job you just did with that customer, that angry customer, I'm just asking you, was that the best you're capable of doing? Now, nobody wants to admit that when they sucked, that was their best. Okay, so you're probably going to get the right answer to that question. He said, no, Dave, it wasn't even close. What would your best have looked like? What would you have done differently that didn't show up against Nebraska? Oh, well, I would have done this, 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 and this. Why do you think that didn't happen? That was my third question, because I got to see if they're going to take responsibility. I didn't take it seriously. I didn't do my normal mental prep. I went in thinking it was going to be easy, and when things got tough, I got too tense. So what can I expect to see you do differently against Purdue tomorrow? In other words, let's call it, let's move forward. Dave, I'm going to do this, 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 and this. All right, my friend. I'm going to be sitting right behind the bench. I'm going to be watching you. I appreciate your commitment to do that, and I'm going to hold you to it. Now, you can take this series of questions. Was that your best? What would your best have looked like? Why do you think that didn't happen? What can I expect to see moving forward with someone who just does a lousy job with the customer or a lousy job for the month? And what we're doing is we're confronting, but it's very engaging. We're getting them involved. Leadership is a dialogue, not a monologue. And we're getting them to commit. We're not making them commit. Because I could have told them, Tyler, here's what you did wrong. This, 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 and this. But it was better if he said it. Because now he has an obligation to fix it. If I'd have just said it, he could have got defensive. Well, I will tell you, if we get more skilled at leading with these types of questions, we can confront people by having conversations. Confronting doesn't mean we're wagging the finger and accusing. We need to get better at asking questions and making it conversational. You can say, I believe in tough love. I believe in giving brutally honest feedback, but not giving it brutally. Making it conversational. It takes practice and it takes some of the fear out. You're not as tense. They're not as defensive. I will tell you this. We did lose. Purdue was the number 2 team in the country at the time, and they did come in and they beat us by 6 points, and we had them like up until the last minute, and we just gave the game away. Tyler was the best player on either team that day, and he was guarding 7'4" Zach Edey. But he did everything he committed to doing. He was a total beast, and that was a shallow victory for me. I hate to lose, believe me, but I was really proud of him. I really knew he grew that day, and so I think it's learning how to speak to people, learning how to ask them questions, and doing it. Tone and inflection and body language are more important than the words you say. There's that UCLA study, Jay. 55% of communication is body language. If you got your hands on your hips, if your face is all wrinkled and red, and you're wagging your finger, they can't even hear what the heck you're telling them. You're so distracting. 55% body language, 38% tone and inflection. That's 93% before we open our mouth and say a word, before the actual word comes out. You say, well, why do words mean so little? Well, because they're not going to hear the words. If your tone is condescending, sarcastic, disrespectful, if you get personal, if you get profane, if you get emotional, if you get loud, and your body language stinks, they're not going to hear anything you say. So we got to get better at learning how to relate. And accountability to me, Jay, it's a conversation. It's not write-ups, it's not loss of a privilege, it's not probation. Yeah, it may come to that. I get it. For most things, that's not where you start. Having a skillful conversation with someone fixes a ton of stuff if
Oh,
you know what to say and how to say it.
I think you get so much information back out of that conversation too, right? Because you're actually caring about that person. I think a lot of people's default is going to that corrective action right off the bat before actually trying to dive in and learn a little bit more. In that example with Tyler Wall, it is, one, having the great relationship to start with, but then two, when you approach it that way, it was such a light bulb moment for me when you said that, because I do think some of my most impactful conversations that are accountability based have started like that, right? Where it isn't like, hey, I'm coming for your throat right off the bat. It is, let's have a talk. Like, something's not going right. Let's try to figure out why. And then you have more of that collaborative approach to making sure that this gets done, the desired result gets done. And it just, as you're talking through that, I think is so effective for so many people out there that are struggling with this very subject, right? This very topic, where maybe they have good people that aren't putting out their best, and being able to point that out and have conversations around that can be an absolute game changer for folks. This week's episode of Beyond the Wrench is brought to us by Jasper Engines and Transmissions. Okay, your customer's engine or transmission has failed, but now is not the time for them to trade their vehicle. Not without a working engine or transmission. Besides, would they have kept their vehicle another 3 to 5 years if their engine or transmission had not let them down? If you answered yes, then Jasper Engines and Transmissions is your choice to give your customer's vehicle new life and many thousands of miles of enjoyable driving performance. When considering the high cost of a new or newer used vehicle, there's a pretty good case to be made for replacing a drivetrain component that has failed or is delivering poor performance. Rather than trading their car, truck, van, or SUV, install a quality remanufactured Jasper product for less than your customer would have to invest in a new vehicle or a newer used vehicle. Check out their website at jasperengines.com to learn more about the money-saving value of Jasper.
We need to be able to influence the influencers. Okay. So a lot of times we avoid the influencers because they intimidate us. They are in their own little world. They do their own thing. We just leave them alone, man. He's fine. As a sales manager, I used to do this. I got to get down here and fix 05 car Fred, because if I really work hard with him, I can get him up to 6 and he can have a record month and do his victory lap around the store and ask to be promoted. But the 25 car guy, I don't want to mess with him. But see, here's the problem with that. I need to influence the influencers. It's one thing to have influence with 5 car Fred, but that's not going to help my changes stick. That's not going to help get the respect I need. I need to build the relationship with the top person, not to micromanage them, but to support them. What more do you need from me? Okay, to get to know them, to get to know what makes them tick. Tyler was an influencer on that team, and for them to hear me talk to him like that, everybody raised their game. Wasn't enough to beat Purdue, but we didn't get killed like we were supposed to either. And it's so we have to be more confident and competent in our ability to relate to people. We got to work harder at building relationships. See, too many of us, we spend too much time with stuff, not enough time with people. We overmanage, we underlead. And they never teach leaders this, but management and leadership are two different skill sets. They're not the same thing. And you got to get good at both. It comes with the territory, but management is really the paperwork part of the job. Leadership is the people work part of the job. And we spend so much time with stuff, we got no time for people. And quite frankly, the reason we spend a lot of time with stuff, Jay, stuff's easier. Stuff doesn't talk back, doesn't come in late, doesn't create drama, doesn't have personal problems, doesn't need pep talks, right? Doesn't ask for a raise. I mean, we can feel like we've mastered the stuff. So to keep our egos intact, we spend more time with this safe stuff where we can feel in control. Because if I get out there with those people, people are messy. People got issues. One day they're up, one day they're down, one day they like you, next day they're holding a revolution against you. And it's like, but avoiding it isn't going to help you grow your team. And eventually, Jay, you know that if we don't hold our people accountable, we get held accountable. So I tell the managers that come to my seminars, you get good at this, or someone who's good at this is going to do it to you. Okay. And it may not end well for you. So it's a skill that can be developed, but it also is a mindset. Accountability requires a skill set and a mindset. See, I can know how to do all this stuff that I'm talking about and still not do it because I'm afraid. Still not do it because, Jay, we're setting a record, man. We're having a record month. Why should I rock the boat and go talk to him? I got bigger fish to fry right now, right? And so we have this mindset that says, even though I got the skill set, I find reasons not to lose them, not to use it. It's like, yeah, I know I should do it, but we're shorthanded. And so if I have that conversation with him, he might leave. That's the mindset part. Let me tell you something about being shorthanded. You are better to be strategically short-staffed than foolishly filled up. You are better off to have fewer people that are the right people that will step up and rally because you're a little shorthanded than you are to have some toxic achiever in your culture holding all those other folks down. So good news is when I say it's skill set and mindset, you can develop both. Both of those are within your control to develop, which means if you don't develop it, it's your fault. It's on you, you know? And so it's there's no excuse to remain ignorant. You
Oh,
can get better. You can get the training, get the coaching, you can get the books, you can take the courses. Um, Ignorance is very, very expensive. And but then if you know how to do it, you're not ignorant anymore because ignorance is lack of training or knowledge. If you know how to do it and you're not doing it, you can't claim ignorance. Now we're going to have to call that stupid because if you know what to do and you're not doing it, you can't hide behind ignorance anymore. The definition of stupidity is lacking common sense or intelligence. Well, if you know what to do and you don't do it, it's not very intelligent. There's no common sense there. So, I mean, stupid, we don't want that as part of our personal brand, you know.
I so many good things right there that we just talked through that I just blown away by. I think on that end, and when we talk through the people side, I know early on for me as a manager, that was one thing. It was almost like that imposter syndrome. I had a pretty large team under me when I was about 30 years old, and there were people that had worked at this company longer than I'd been alive. And so I thought I knew what a manager looked like, and it was a lot of the paperwork side and trying to go through numbers and really focusing on our KPIs and P&L. But looking back to when I first stepped into that leadership type of role, I wish I would have spent the first few months just getting to know people a little bit more. And I remember going into that where it was a large team and I was having trouble just remembering people's names, right? That were on my team. And had I just taken the extra step to just, because I love talking to people and I love building those relationships, but I almost didn't have the confidence of I can go spend some time with these people and get to know them. I have to get my nose down and start working right away. And I've told other people this in the past, but that is one major error that I made when I stepped into leadership was not taking that part a little bit more seriously. And it was because I was trying to look good to my to the people that own the company, right? I was trying to look good to them. And it made me less effective as a result, right? Had I gone in with a different mindset there, I think I could have done a much better job.
You know, you got to go slow to go fast, and you got to build that foundation of relationships. I did the same thing. I think it's very common. It's very common. We're so in such a hurry to get a result. We come out with all these new processes and all these new rules. We haven't built the relationships. Well, here's the problem. Rules without relationships equals rebellion. I don't care if you're raising kids. I don't care if you're building a team. If all you got are rules and processes and you haven't connected with those people, they haven't bought into you. And I don't care if you're the boss. I don't care if you're the leader. They don't have to buy into you. Buy-in is earned. It's not commanded. Okay. They don't have to buy into you. They can hold their nose, take their paycheck, and just have a job, but they don't have to buy into anything. You have to earn that. And they have to buy into your character, your competence, your consistency. There's 5 C's they got to buy into. Your compassion, they got to know you care about them. And they got to buy into your commitment. They got to see that you're changing, that you're putting in the work, that you're just not trying to build a great team by memo, you know. And and this is easy to skip over. But boy, do we pay a price. Do we pay a price for that? And then I wasn't trained as a manager. So many of us, we weren't trained. We turned a lot of hours. We wrote a lot of service. I sold a ton of cars. So they knighted me as a manager. And like all these skills are going to come to me in a dream one night. I didn't know how to do any of
Happens
this
all day, every day.
every day. And it's like the best time to get ready for the position is before you're in the position. That's why the best leaderships, I just held a seminar out in Chicago for a couple of days, and they have what they call their rising stars. So these were people who were not in leadership positions yet that they have marked for leadership, that were in there with the leaders, hearing the same message, getting on the same page, you know, and preparing them for when their time came. That's very rare, but it's very powerful when that happens. And I was kind of a hypocrite. I mean, because I wasn't very good at what I did, I had to spend more time doing it. I never took a day off. You ever notice that? I mean, if you're not very good at what you do, you got to spend more time trying to get it done. I work in all these crazy hours, never took a day off. I had to make every decision, solve every problem, have every idea. I had ulcers. I was 40 pounds overweight. But then I'm trying to talk to my people about standards of excellence, but they looked at me. They didn't see excellence. They saw a basket case. They looked at, they looked at my body. They didn't see discipline. I mean, I could look, I hadn't seen my shoes looking down in 2 years. I had that belly in the way. It's like, how do I talk to them about discipline and standards when I don't even look like I'm living those things? It's like, I got to be the message, man. They would rather see the message in me than hear the message from me. They would rather, if I'm going to talk to them about having a plan when they walk in, I need to walk in with my plan. I see these managers, they walk in without a plan. They're not going to run the day's going to run them. They come in, they're not the boxer, they're the bag. They pick up a cup of coffee and a bagel and they're walking around like a talk show host waiting for something to react to. Instead of acting as a catalyst that really gets that team moving in the right direction. So these things can be learned, and I've learned a lot through my mistakes. And I tell everybody, boy, if you could have seen me back then, I don't care how bad you might be at something, you'd have hope. You'd have hope. Because it's like, oh man, if he could figure some things out, there's got to be hope for me too. But you got to work at it. Like anything you want to get better at, just showing up doesn't do it. Showing up doesn't get you better. Stepping up gets you better. There are a lot of people who show up, don't step up, and just really work on their craft. And management, leadership, these are big time skill sets, man. That you got to work at it. You got to study. You got to put in the work. You got to get the education and then turn it into application. Experience is no substitute for growth, and they're certainly not synonymous with each other.
I get the sense that a lot of leaders struggle with accountability for the exact reason you just explained, which is that they struggle to hold themselves accountable. And so to get themselves disciplined to the point to where they have the confidence in holding other people accountable is a big step.
Huge. And how many times do you hear people say, I just got to hold myself more accountable, but they cannot tell you what that would look like in their daily routine. So I started to try to overcome that challenge in myself. How can I hold myself more accountable? It's like, well, how do you hold someone else accountable? You got to have clarity, what we said earlier. There can't be any accountability without clarity. So let me start by, before I go home tonight, let me schedule my 4 biggest priorities for tomorrow. I'm a big believer in MAXACS, MAXACTS, maximum activities. I know I'm going to have 40 things to do tomorrow. If I could only do 4, now that'll narrow your focus, that question. If I could only do 4 that were most predictive of getting the result I need to get, what would they be? You better know what they are and you better be good at those things because the same 4 come up a lot. And so I'm going to schedule them on my calendar. Now I have finished my day before I've started it. I'm leaving the office with a win. I'm going to review it in the morning before I get to work as part of my mindset routine. I got a routine I go through in the morning, get my mindset tuned up. Now I've seen it twice. Now I've got clarity. I've also got something to hold myself accountable for at the end of the day. So at the end of the day, I look at my planner. It's very simple. And I do this every single day. Okay, I got these 3 and I missed this one. I'm like that athlete now watching a game film. If you ever watch film, you know you're not just looking for what you did wrong. It's like, why did this work? Because I want to duplicate it. So I'm going to study my wins, Jay. Most people don't study their wins. Why was I able to get these 3 done today? Because some days I don't. Because there's so much coming at me, I don't get them done. I had 40 things to do. These are the 4 I'm focused on. I got these 3. You got to study your wins. It's reckless to be successful without being resolutely clear as to why you're successful because you can't duplicate it. It's just hit and miss. And it's like, well, I got back on track faster. This so and so wasn't here today, and I always seem to be more productive when they're gone. There's a message. And I got better at this task, so it didn't take me as long to get it done. Okay, now those are good things to know. Now, how about this one I missed? And you don't go to blame here. Well, I got called into this meeting. Somebody delegated. No, no, no. What if I were better? What if I were more prepared? Maybe it wouldn't have taken as long. Maybe I could have wasted less time with trivial conversations and more time getting this done. This is what I call weighing myself daily. See, if you're gonna hold yourself accountable, you can't wait till the end of the month because that gives you a lot of chances to make bad decisions and develop bad habits. You have to shrink the distance between action and accountability so you can reward the good things quicker and correct the wrong things faster. Weighing yourself daily, that's the key to holding yourself accountable. It's key to hold your people accountable. That's why I like that morning meeting where we talk about whether or not they did the max acts the day before. See, if I'm just waiting till the end of the month to hold them accountable, that's a long time for them to do stupid, unproductive stuff. I want to shovel the piles while they're small if they're off track, you see. And actually, Jay, this is how I lost 40 pounds. I went, it's the same concept. I went to the doctor. I said, nothing's working. I was up 40. I'd go down 40. Every diet, and it was just exhausting. And he said, well, how often do you weigh? I told him. He said, well, that's not very often. He said, try weighing every week. Make it a Monday. That way you won't binge as much on the weekends. You know, weekends we can binge. Well, that didn't work for me because I'd weigh on Monday and then I'd go out to dinner Monday night and they'd bring that dessert cart around and that 1,100 calorie piece of cheesecake would be there. And I knew I shouldn't have it, but it'd be like, well, you know what? I don't have to weigh myself for another week. And I would do this through Thursday. I still have 3 more days. I still have 4 more days. And because there was too big of a gap between action and accountability, it allowed myself to make bad decisions. I told my doctor, I'm going to weigh every day. Oh, don't do that. Water weight, bloating, it'll throw you off. I said, I understand that, but I also understand the psychology. If I know I am going to haul my rear end on that scale every single morning and write it down in my journal, what it was, I'm going to be paying a lot more attention to my decisions during that day. I dropped 40 pounds. I've kept it off for years. Never counted calories, never did the carb thing. I just manage decisions better. There's a principle there. We got to find ways to weigh ourselves daily to catch it quicker so we can reinforce the right things and we keep doing them, and to catch it quicker when we do the wrong things so we can correct it faster. You're not going to hold yourself accountable until you're clear what you want to accomplish most to begin with every day. Otherwise, it's just going with a gut feeling.
That will be an excellent clip. Just in general, so much great advice throughout this podcast. And I do have a few questions for you. Our marketing team had mentioned that we wanted to launch this new segment of just kind of questions about the guest. And so got a few questions for you before we let you go. Okay. First one is, what was your first job?
My first job was in the food service business. I was a dishwasher in a restaurant, and my dad had restaurants. I became a short order cook at a truck stop and at his steakhouse. And when they went out of business, I started selling insurance door to door. Had a friend say, "You might like selling cars more than selling death policies." That sounded like an upgrade, and it changed my life. But I was a dishwasher. That was my first job as a teenager, other than
I
cutting
love that.
lawns, doing that sort of thing.
Oh, it's such a cool thing. What time do you get up in the morning?
I get up at 4. And so, I like to strike early. I don't even need an alarm. I've conditioned I can get up at 4 in any time zone in the world. And know how to manage my energy, manage my days. And I get more done by 6 than what most people get done in a good part of the day. So I love to strike early, never have to recover from a fast start.
That is great advice. And last question, if you weren't doing this when I say this, you kind of are all encompassing anyway, but if you weren't an author, speaker, so on, what would you do?
Oh, I go back and sell cars. I love selling cars. I mean, I love selling cars. Hey, if you can cook an egg or you can sell a car, you'll always have a job. In fact, you can have 2 jobs. You can sell cars and then you can cook the eggs on your days off. But I love to sell. I love it. It changed my life financially. You build your own business within a business, and it'll take you as far as you want to go, which is why I have so little tolerance for people who screw up this business by not fully maximizing all the opportunities, not working on their craft, not working on themselves. It has so much to offer. I'd absolutely go back to sell cars, and I'm not saying I may not do that someday.
This has been maybe one of my favorite conversations. I didn't expect any less, just based on our prior conversations. And you're a remarkably talented person. There's the book Raving Fans, and you've made me a raving fan of you. I do have to give a shout out to Bill Demery at the Tom Wood Group. Bill. Bill was
Yeah.
the one that introduced me to you in all of your work, and I feel like I'm just scratching the surface right now. I had done a podcast with Bill where he talked about your writing and your podcast and everything that you're doing. And he consumes you every day, right? He is using your work every single day. And I feel like I'm in that boat now. Bill has kind of converted me. And then just talking to you, it's been such an absolute pleasure getting to know you. And I get why Bill was such a raving fan before. It has been just mind blowing to me how fun this has been to get to know you.
Well, it's been really good to get to know you too, and I appreciate all those kind words. And Bill is one of those hungry, humble guys that, despite all his success, boy, he still wants more. And
Oh,
you rally around the Bills, you rally around those types of people, and they're always fresh, they're always energized because they're always learning. And there's a direct connection between those things there. But this has been fun for me. It's been a privilege and a pleasure. I appreciate you thinking of me and reaching out. And we'll stay in touch. If I get the Badgers, Coach Guard called me and they may bring me back in October. We're seeing if it'll work out to work. We've got a bunch of new guys. We got to see what we got there. But I may be in the area. Maybe we'll get together for some brats and a beer or something.
I sure hope so. And where can people learn more about you?
Yeah, go our website really learn to lead. If you spell it out just like it sounds, learntolead.com has a lot about us. And if you're on LinkedIn, we post a lot of good stuff on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn will take you to the website as well. Those would be the best spots.
If you can't find Dave, you're not looking. Dave is everywhere once you start looking. So I really, really appreciate you taking the time to do this show, and hope we can do it again someday. This was so much fun.
Let's do it. I appreciate it. Say hi to your son. I hope he has a great breakout first season in competitive basketball.
Thank you so much.
Take care, buddy.
That wraps up another episode of Beyond the Wrench. If you liked this episode, please show your support by rating and following the podcast. You can also watch the video interviews on WrenchWay's YouTube channel. Speaking of WrenchWay, did you know Beyond the Wrench is managed and produced by the WrenchWay team? WrenchWay is an online community dedicated to promoting and improving automotive and diesel careers. We help technicians find the best shops to work at, and we also help auto, diesel, and CTE instructors get more support from local industry. You can learn more by visiting wrenchway.com.